I guess I need to turn the mute off my microphone. You think, Lynn? Sorry about that. Thank you for the reminder. Yeah. And hey, Will Louie, thank you for telling me that no audio. So we're just going to back up and start over like it never even happened. Hey, what's up, everybody? Good to see you. Apparently, there's just one too many buttons for Mark to push. Yeah, now you can hear me. Thank you, Lynn. I appreciate you. I'll get there eventually. So good to see everybody. Let me know that you're here in the chat and that you can actually hear me as well. And we'll get started talking about chapter 3 here in just a minute. We'll quickly review chapter 2, and we'll talk about the three tips that he gave at the end of chapter 2. And then we'll start talking through the things that stuck out to me and to you in chapter 3. So that'll be a lot of fun. All right. Now you can hear me. Yes. Turning on the microphone will definitely help. Good to see you, Jackie. Good to see you, Sharon, Christy, Lynn. Will, I know, is here somewhere as well. So good to see all you guys. I promise I will get all the tech worked out here soon. We're going to be talking about chapter 3 here in just yes. Mark forgot part of his job. Lynn's correct. He certainly did. I got to fire that guy if he doesn't get on the ball. That's for sure. He did forget part of his job. That's absolutely right. What's up, James from Ohio? Good to see you. Glad you were here. All right. About another 30 seconds here, and then we'll get started. Start thinking about what you've been learning. I'd love to hear what kind of things you've put into practice so far. We're going to be talking about turning down the dial. Chapter 3, turning down the dial. Chapter 3 has resonated with you the most. Yeah. And I think it'll just start resonating even more because he's kind of laying a foundation, and then he's going to really get into what to do about overthinking. So we're getting into that in chapter 3, and then it'll just keep going deeper, which is going to be great. So first of all, let's just remind ourselves on the end of chapter 2. Actually, let me go back one. The end of chapter 2, he ended with 3 things that we should always ask our soundtracks. And that was number 1, the question, is it true? Number 2, is it helpful? And number 3, is it kind? So is that soundtrack true? Is that soundtrack helpful? Is that soundtrack kind? And those are good ways to start to realize whether a soundtrack is one that we should be listening to or not. And I think that was really helpful. All right. So now we're going to start talking about chapter 3. And, he talked about the difference between a switch and a dial. And he talked about how when he discovered that instead of looking for a switch to just turn off the soundtracks, realizing that it was actually more of a dial was really helpful. So I'm going to read some quotes from chapter 3 that really spoke to me. And as I do that, I would love to hear your thoughts on those quotes, but also just things that resonated with you in general. So again, if you guys are new, this is the book we're reading, Soundtracks, The Surprising Solution to Overthinking. And we're on chapter 3. So let me just start by talking about some things that stuck out to me. The first quote that I thought was really funny because I resonated with it is, you're a bit stuck when you try to play your meditation app on 2 times speed. Yeah. And then in that paragraph, he said, no matter what I tried, no matter how long I held my breath, no matter what I studied, I couldn't completely turn off my broken soundtracks. You're a bit stuck when you try to play your meditation app at 2 speed. It worked for audiobooks. Maybe if I got twice as much mindfulness in half as much time, everything would be fixed. Despite my best efforts, my broken soundtracks kept getting louder at times. I kept retiring them, assuming they would be gone forever, but then they'd pop up in unexpected moments, like Brett Favre refusing to leave the NFL for good. So I thought that was pretty funny, and I really identified with that. And then he started talking about when he went to have breakfast with his friend David Thomas, which I assume is not Dave Thomas from Wendy's, because that guy would be, well, he's not around anymore, but he'd be older, quite a bit older than John. But he went out to breakfast with David, And David just randomly said something that stuck with him. And it was this. He said, the problem with the internal voices we hear is that we want a switch. We think there's a switch out there, and if we can just find it, we can turn off the background noise completely. We only have to do it one time, and then we never hear it again. People want there to be a switch. And John said, those people are crazy, I replied, having spent the last few years of my life looking for that exact thing. It's not a switch, though, he continued. It's a dial. The goal isn't to turn it off forever. The goal is to turn down the volume. It's going to get louder sometimes. That's how dials work. But when life turns up the negative thoughts, we get to turn them down. That takes a lot of the pressure off, because when you hear one again, it's not a sign that you failed to shut it off and need to go find a different switch. It's just time for an action that will turn it back down. And I just cracked up at the visual picture he painted here. He said, I wanted to jump up on top of the table in the diner and shout, it's a dial, it's a dial, and then throw a sixpence to a street urchin like I was Ebenezer Scrooge so he could finally buy his family a fat Christmas goose. That cracked me up. And then he said, when you live with a switch mentality, you set yourself up for automatic failure because it triggers the perfectionism soundtrack. And that's really good. It just makes me want to just read the whole thing there. Yes, Lynn, you were absolutely right. That's a good way to look at it. Sometimes I want an off button. And it's true, we do want an off button. And like he mentioned, sometimes that does work, but it is never permanent. The soundtracks keep coming back. And so instead of looking for an off switch, we need to just be able to turn it down. And I thought that was a really great analogy, and really something I could really understand. What's up, Deborah? Good to see you here, my friend. Another quote he said is, perfectionism will never tell you that it is the switch's fault. It is always your fault, according to perfectionism. It does this because then you'll start looking for a new switch instead of questioning the entire process, which is what we should be doing. And here's another quote here. Let me put this back up. A dial approach says the goal isn't to stop listening forever to all my broken soundtracks. The goal is to turn them down when they get loud. The goal is to head them off at the pass when a traffic jam, unexpected corporate merger, call from an estranged sibling, or any of the billion surprises life throws at you cranks the volume to 10. And here's the rest of that quote. Retiring broken soundtracks is a patient practice, not a singular event. I thought that was really good. The goal is to turn them down when they get loud, not just to try to turn them off with like a switch. And it's a patient practice, not a singular event. Did that resonate with anybody else? It sure did me. Tell me something in the chat there. What do you think? Did it speak to you there? And then as he continued to have breakfast with his friend, he asked for a list of techniques, because I assumed that he thought, like a lot of us do, oh my gosh, David figured it out. What are your techniques? And David shared some of his techniques, but he said that everybody's is a little different. Talked about how important it is for the techniques to be simple. And he talked about how for him, he had a conversation with himself about his favorite seat at the local coffee shop where he would like to write. I thought that was pretty funny. He said, writing in my favorite seat in my favorite coffee shop at my favorite time of day might seem to be like a good turn down technique I can use when I'm stuck with my writing. But in fact, it's not. It's just the opposite. It's a broken soundtrack in disguise. It's too rigid. There are too many rules. It leads to inaction instead of action, which is always the sign of a broken soundtrack, which is really great. I'm just checking out what some of you guys are saying. Yes. Christy, I've caught myself turning down an imaginary dial this week and telling myself it's okay. Good job, my friend. That's great. Kurt says John Acuff is an amazing individual. I've seen him several times on Dave Ramsey show. Yeah, he's really good. He's really great. And he's super funny too, which I like a lot. Good job, Christy. I love to see that, my friend. That's great. Then he goes into talking about disclaimers. Did you remember that part? Where pretty much he surveyed all kinds of people and he noticed two things. He said, one, more people use turn down techniques than I previously suspected. And number two, almost nobody talks about them. And I definitely think that's true as well, is lots of people do this, whether they realize they do it or not. And sometimes they think that their techniques are kind of dumb. And because they don't share them with other people, they don't realize that their techniques are actually not that extraordinary or dumb. We all do similar things like that. He said cheesy, weird, and dumb were words that he heard a lot. And I highlighted this part. Even if the technique has changed someone's life, there was a real temptation to begin the conversation with a disclaimer. That was really good. Man, keep sharing your thoughts. I'd love to hear them as we go through this. As you do the activities inside this book, you'll be tempted to use your own disclaimers with yourself. How do I know? Well, have you ever had an idea and then determined it wouldn't work even before you wrote it down? As in, the idea did not even make it to a piece of paper or a note in your phone before you self-edited it? You should be nodding your head right now because everyone has done that. Here's the next quote I got here. Explore what works for you without making disclaimers. Don't judge a turn down technique before you test it in your own life. Do not judge a turn down technique before you test it in your own life. And then this whole next section is turn down for what, which makes me laugh, of course. I won't even try to do Lil Jon or anybody like that. But I thought that was pretty funny. And he listed his own 5 turn down techniques, his favorite turn down techniques. And for him, number 1 was running. And if you follow him, you'll know that he does a lot of live streams when he's out running. So I know that that's one of the things he uses. Forgive me, I'm trying to stifle a sneeze here as well. If you're having to look at me on the screen, I'm sorry about that. But he runs a lot, and he does a lot of live streams when he's out, clearly when he's out running or when he's stopped on his run. And I know that gets his brain going, and I can tell it does. So he runs. And then number 2 is Lego sets. And my wife loves Legos, and she would agree that it is a turn down technique for her to do Legos. And so I love that she loves them. And so I love buying Lego sets for her for pretty much any excuse. In fact, this room that I'm in right now, we're going to turn into a Lego set room and a comic book collecting room for me. We are 2 super nerds, and we are totally good with it. So Lego sets is one of his. Number 3 is making lists. Number 4 is one of my personal ones. Minor tasks, massive payoff. And that was, I wrote, "This is me" right next to that. When I want to turn the volume down, this is him. I put my laundry away. I go to the mailbox. I rake the yard. I fill up my oldest daughter's car with gas. I clean my desk. I clean the stairs. I clean the stairs of the items that have been placed there by my wife in the hopes that anyone, will finally admit that they are there and put them away. A great way to get out of your head and into your world is to do a task you can actually finish. That's why you'll see me at the grocery store some afternoons buying a single item. We weren't desperately out of salt and vinegar Pringles, though they are clearly the best variety. But I needed an achievable task to help me get unstuck from a bit of overthinking. That is me right there. I have done this for so many years, and I didn't realize until reading this book that that's what I was doing. I would find a task that I knew that I would enjoy or that I could complete, and I would go do that when I was having soundtracks. Again, I didn't label any of that in my head. I didn't know any of the terms, but I have been doing minor tasks, massive payoff for a long time. And then his number 5 was friends. And when he finds himself in the middle of a broken soundtrack, one of the fastest ways to turn it down is to talk to a friend over coffee. And he talks about that a little bit there too. And then I'll give you this next quote here because I think this is really great. Really, really good. Says, when you talk to a friend, let me give you the part right before this. When you tell a friend a broken soundtrack, two things will happen. Number one, they say it's not true. Number two, they share one of their own. Why will they tell you it's not true? Because the easiest lies to see through are someone else's. The easiest music to hear accurately is someone else's. That is so true. Because isn't it true when you hear someone else saying something bad about themselves, you go, man, that's not true at all. You immediately identify that. You immediately identify that soundtrack as just garbage. But we have more trouble when we identify the soundtrack that we are listening to. But friends will call you out, and that's why that's one of the reasons that friends are so helpful. Yeah, Corey says, folding fresh towels into a nice stack helps me turn down. That's great. That's fantastic. And also, it's good that you know that helps you. So that's excellent. Thank you for sharing that. That's really great. And then the next part here, he says, is that really all you got? I love this. What kind of self-respecting overthinker shares a list with only 5 items on it? I mean, really, what if you hate Legos? You ever step on one? That's the devil's carpet. What if running feels like a form of punishment? I might as well have said flossing your teeth is a good turn down technique. What if all of your friends have wispy mustaches and are going to tell you that you should definitely get that face tattoo with Ms. Understood spelled with an intentional Z to highlight how different you are from conventional society? What then? We're overthinkers. We don't believe in lists that are 5 items long. We roll 50 strong or we don't roll at all. And he says, I agree. And then he gives us 50 turn down techniques you can use today when your broken soundtrack gets loud. All right, you got to tell me in the chat here, who checked out this list of 50? Who read them? I read them all, and I laughed at a lot of them, but some of them really spoke to me. So tell me in the chat, which ones made you laugh? And which ones did you think maybe these might work for me? Let me know. Did anybody look up Steven Seagal and Russia, number 4? I know somebody said that in the group that they did. What'd you like in the list of 50 turn down techniques? Yeah. It's great. He has number 5, put something where it belongs. The shoes in my house always seem on adventures far from their home in the garage. Pretend to be your favorite professor and hold class outside for yourself today. Find a bench at work or a chair in your backyard and get some fresh air. Really good. Christina says she tidies up. That helps. It's really good too. Number 25 and 26 make me laugh. Number 25 says, call your mom. And number 26 says, or equally helpful, depending on your relationship with your mom, give yourself a week off from talking to your mom. Catch up on the latest episode of a podcast you love. Look through the camera roll of your photos of your last vacation. Plan your next vacation. Watch one of your favorite movies from the 80s or 90s. Start a new hobby. Balance your personal budget. That would definitely not help me. Get a bird feeder. In a matter of days, you'll be amazed at the flying art that's visiting your backyard. That's really good. Yell at squirrels. You get to do this one for free if you get the bird feeder. Eat a small snack. Snickers is right. You're not you when you get hungry. Get a haircut. Get your nails done. Get a massage. Really good. Oh, watch clips of underdogs auditioning for singing shows and wowing the judges. It's really good. Oh, Christina, you've been thinking about getting a fish tank? I love that. I've had fish tanks on and off my whole life. I've got a really big one in the other room right now that desperately needs cleaning. So that's a thing. But yeah, aquariums are great. So anyway, great. 50 50 ideas for soundtracks there. And he says, if you can't find a turn down technique on that list that works for you, then here's number 51. Stop lying. I know you didn't already try the Steven Seagal Russia idea because nobody saw that coming. Putin named him a special envoy to America. What does that even mean? So that's really good. And he says, if you do something different, they'll let me know. Post your favorite turn down technique on Instagram with hashtag soundtracks and tag me at John Acuff so I can see it. I'm always looking for fresh ways to turn down my soundtracks, and I would love to see what you're up to. And here's the last quote that I'll put on the screen here. Retiring broken soundtracks is a fun way to start dealing with overthinking. But the real fun is when you learn to replace your soundtracks with music you actually want to listen to. I think that is so good. And man, chapter 4 is going to really, really jump into it. He's talking about borrowing from the best. And yes, it's going to be really, really great. Jackie says, take a walk and enjoy the beauty of nature. Yeah, that's really good. Christy says, I like how the turn down techniques range from something that is a few minutes to a few hours. Yeah, it really, and the goal is not to find the magic one for everybody else. It's to find the one that works for you. And it doesn't matter if it works for someone else. It only matters if it works for you. So there isn't a wrong one as long as you find the soundtrack, the music that you should be listening to get you where you need to be, not the junk soundtrack that we need to get rid of. So that's really good. All right. Got about 5 minutes before we hit our limit for today. I want to keep this to 30 minutes. Today, by the way, I started going live in our group and also on YouTube and my Facebook page because I realized that making a private Facebook group keeps this at arm's length from some people. And I really realized, I want to be able to reach more people with this conversation because I think it's so good. So what we'll do in the coming weeks is I'm going to start some more conversations in the private group so that we can talk through more of this, and we'll use the group for that kind of conversation. So if you're watching on YouTube tonight, or if you're watching on my Facebook page, you are more than welcome to hit the link that's in my post, and you can join us in the private group if you want to, or you can just watch on Facebook and YouTube. It's all good. My hope is that this book and this conversation helps all of us turn down the overthinking. And I think a lot of us have really been struggling with that. So it's a good time to learn. So before we go, what other kinds of comments or questions? Talk to me in general. Has the book been working? Has the process been working for you? Do you like talking about this? I hope it's good for everybody. It's been great for me. And it's been really good to have you guys here together as well. So I'll give you a couple minutes to let me know what's going on in the chat. And then we'll wrap up for the day, and we'll get back next Monday with chapter 4. Glad you guys like it. I think it's really good. All right. Excellent. Well, thank you guys for spending your evening with me, at least half an hour. If you need to catch up with the book, go ahead and catch up and read chapter 4. And we will get together and talk about chapter 4 next Monday. And I'm going to also throw some things in the Facebook group for some additional conversation, because I think that'll really be helpful. I love you guys. Thank you so much. If you're new again, right before we go, the book is called Soundtracks by John Acuff, The Surprising Solution to Overthinking. Go grab a copy of it, do audiobook, Kindle, whatever's good for you. And we will pick up again on Monday, and I'll see you guys in the group. Have a good night, guys. Talk to you later.